All right, welcome back to the channel. So Errol Spence Jr. could be facing Keith Thurman in 2021 if one-time Thurman beats Yordenis Ugas, dog, and that makes that Terence Crawford fight that less likely to happen. Let's talk about that and the return of one time in this video. All right, welcome back. You thought you was going to get rid of him, but he ain't going nowhere, and that is Keith one-time Thurman, the former WBC, former WBA super welterweight champion in the world, and a current dude that is on the hunt for a fight with Errol Spence Jr., which quite honestly is funny because, man, what difference a couple years make, because this guy is in the absolute flip-flopped position that Errol Spence Jr. was, except for Errol Spence Jr. did not get beat up by Manny Pacquiao. But you get my point. Errol Spence Jr. was the young, hungry fighter, was the hungry fighter looking to get to the champ. Keith Thurman was the champ looking at the young, hungry fighter coming up, and he really wasn't trying to feel it because, you know, he had other things to do. He had bigger money to make. He had other things to do, right? He was one time. And that is where Errol Spence Jr. is now and where Keith Thurman is now. Keith Thurman is the guy now hunting for Errol Spence Jr. because Errol Spence is the man, and he got a lot of things to do. So what is Keith Thurman going to do? Is he going to fold up? Is he going to go away? Is he just going to do commentating? Is he going to start a YouTube channel? What's he going to do? He says he's going to keep fighting, and the first thing he wants to do is he's setting his eyes on Yordenis Ugas, who was the WBA regular champion and quite honestly might end up being elevated to the WBA super champion because Manny Pacquiao ain't fighting none of these young dudes because he would get hurt. Okay, and that's just what it is. So why does Keith Thurman not get to go away? He's not going to go away because he is a big name, number one. Number two, he's competitive with anybody and he'll beat most. And number three, dude, he has a great mind. He's very, very insightful. And dude, if there's somebody that can call fights and give their opinions about fights going on, dude, Keith Thurman is the one because the guy really is very articulate and he's very quick-witted. He's funny and he understands the sport. And you can listen to when he talks about fighters and boxers and he's picking fights and what he's seeing. And you just know the guy, not only inside of the ring, but his eyes in the ring are very, very clear. And the dude is he's a top-notch guy, man. So just because you're not Errol Spence Jr. or you're not, whatever, like you're not the absolute best welterweight in the world, that doesn't mean that you're going to have to go somewhere. Because within the PBC, there's so many fights that can be made that Keith Thurman has a lot of options. Like the fact that he said, oh, well, if I can't get Errol Spence Jr. to fight for a unified WBC and WBC and IBF, well, hey man, I can get back into the picture by going to get my WBA back. And first step, beat Yordenis Ugas. And he should be able to beat Yordenis Ugas. And if he is able to beat Yordenis Ugas, I don't want to hear any of this stuff at all about people not fighting Keith Thurman. Because, dude, if he's able to go and beat a guy like Yordenis Ugas, dude, Ugas is like a much better version of Josecito Lopez, the guy that gave Keith Thurman a lot of problems just because I think Keith Thurman was a little bit out of shape. He wasn't really, trusting, sitting down on his punches, the different things that he has said and he's been really honest about. But I think that, that's a really good fight. And that's a guy that other people won't fight. Like Terence Crawford won't fight him. Sean Porter don't want to give him a rematch. Sean Porter did fight him, and a lot of people think Sean Porter lost to him, right? I just don't see anybody in a rush to fight Yordenis Ugas. But this is a good win, and Keith Thurman, that puts Keith Thurman, in my opinion, right back up there with Danny Garcia and Sean Porter. But that statement right there is what leads me to the reason that says, Keith Thurman will pass up Terence Crawford in getting the Errol Spence Jr. fight or getting a fight with Danny Garcia if Danny Garcia is able to win. Because this is an in-house fight, right? And that's what he's talking about. He's talking about the PBC and him doing exactly what it is that Top Rank and these guys are doing to PBC fighters and cutting them out, and non-PBC fighters and cutting them out, right? Look what's going on in heavyweight. I just did a video about it today. Dude, they are freezing Deontay Wilder out. All of this stuff about his contract expired and all that, no, that is them freezing him out. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Everybody knows that it's difficult to get dates. It's difficult to find times. It's difficult to get, all kind of stuff is going on. Fights may get canceled at the last minute. But strangely, the only person in boxing that doesn't get to have their fight rescheduled or have a contract negotiated is Deontay Wilder. No. The reason why these guys are all acting as if Deontay Wilder doesn't deserve the shot and get past it is because they don't want Deontay Wilder there. They don't want him to win. They don't want him to be a champion. And if you have not been able to tell that, something's wrong with you. Now, with Keith Thurman and Terence Crawford, hey, man, why not the same thing? You're eventually, when you guys don't support fighters, like at Top Rank, when Top Rank does this to fighters, no, you can't turn around and be surprised when the PBC does the same thing, because eventually it's going to be a situation, if you can't beat them, join them. Okay? All right, well, if this is the deal, I'm trying to compete with you, and you keep cheating, right? You won't let you keep cheating. You keep going to sanctioning bodies behind me, making sure that the sanctioning bodies paying whoever you got to pay in order to get their votes for your fighter to be ranked higher and my fighter not to be ranked higher. And then when my fighter gets a championship and we fight your fighter, and then we have a rematch clause, and you just out the blue say you're not going to respect it, and now Deontay Wilder may never get another title fight? No, man. If you do that, if you support people that do that over here on the when they do that in Top Rank to Deontay Wilder, when they work together, don't be surprised if the people that were also working with Deontay Wilder on Deontay Wilder's team, who are working with other fighters on their team, don't want to deal with you. Because they feel like, oh, you messing over Deontay Wilder, okay, there's nothing we can really do about that because we have to eat too. So, hey, man, we'd love for you not to treat Deontay Wilder like this, but we've got other fighters that we've got to take care of too, and they're having the same problem. The PBC and Al Heyman, dude, listening to like interviews that were done by Derek James and these guys, and like how boxing has changed and how different it is underneath him. Man, dude, in that organization, Al Heyman, Floyd Mayweather Jr., Leonard Ellerbe, whatever, really constitutes the leadership of the PBC. You can say what you want about them, dude, but they are putting on a lot of really great fights, and they're giving a lot of black fighters opportunities to make a lot of money and be showcased and all of that good stuff. But the problem is that when you're with the PBC, you have to choose between whether you're going to make good money or whether you're going to be famous and have the boxing media supporting you, right? Because isn't that what Chris Mannix said about the problem with the PBC fighters and the media, is that they don't have a functional relationship with the media, right? Because you won't kowtow and bend over to them and give them exclusives and all of that stuff. For all of your fighters that they then don't, they no longer have their journalistic duty to communicate information fairly and partially about your fighters. Why wouldn't an organization with that many fighters just hunker down, close shop, stop dealing with other people, and just put on the fights with themselves? Dude, they're selling anyway. There was a video this thing came out from Kevin Iole that just blew my mind listening to this dude, reading this guy. Kevin Iole is a boxing writer from Yahoo Sports. He has been reporting that the PBC was going bankrupt for the last 5 years. Like, he's the number one guy that I heard telling me from his inside sources that the PBC was going bankrupt, that the PBC might have to sell, that it's not being successful. All those hit pieces that he did on Al Heyman in the PBC during the time that there were the lawsuits going on between De La Hoya and Al Heyman, and Bob Arum, right? That's who this dude is. That's who this dude was involved with. And now he's writing articles that are just ludicrous. He literally walked down Gervonta Davis's all of his accomplishments. He wrote this article saying, will Gervonta Davis ever be a star? What do you mean, will he ever be a star? You're writing an article about his pay-per-view, dummy. He is a star because you're writing an article about his pay-per-view. That's enough, okay? There are stars out there whose movies flop, all right? You can't tell me just because you can name one or two, you can name some movies that Eddie Murphy was in that flopped completely at the box office. That does not mean he's not a star, because everybody in the entertainment world knows who he is and have seen him, recognize him. That's a star. That's what Gervonta Davis is. But they walk through, when they're doing this destruction of Gervonta Davis, they walk through everything that he did and just find a convenient excuse to just brush it off. Yeah, he sells out in many cities. What do you mean he sells out in many cities? He sells out in all of them that he's been in. Not many, all. Use the right word, right? But they just pencil whip you and pencil whip you and pencil whip you. That's what they're on, man, over there. And that's why, hey, if the Terence Crawford fight doesn't happen, don't be shocked. Because Top Rank doesn't really want to work with the PBC. And that's just a fact. And the PBC loves to work with the PBC. So you can expect to see Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, and Sean Porter all fight Errol Spence, right? All of them. Because that's what you can expect at Top Rank in the lightweight division. You know Devin Haney's not going to get the fight because Devin Haney's not Top Rank. And it doesn't have anything to do with who he fought and what his route was and all of that. It's promotional nonsense. Same with what could be cutting off Terence Crawford. But hey, man, you can't complain about it on the Terence Crawford, Errol Spence Jr. side if you don't complain about it on the Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and those guys' side, because that's what they're doing to Deontay Wilder. That's just what's going on in boxing. But that's my take. You let me know what your take is, and with that, I'm out. Peace.